My name is Bruce, and this is Stewart Painting 1977 Limited. For many years, people have asked me, what's the history of Stewart Painting and how did we get started? So I'm going to do a little video here and explain a bit of the story. So back in around 1975, I took my apprenticeship, and and then when I went up to Grimshaw, I I run into a lady who was very influential in the community, and I was a friend of her son's. And I come out of the drugstore, and I bumped into her, and she says, "Oh, Bruce," she says, "how have you been lately, and what have you been doing?" I told her what I'd been doing, and she says, "Well, she says, we need a little painting done over at the Autumn Lodge." And so I thought about it for a couple of days. I was just up visiting my parents, and so I agreed to go over and give her a price. Well, back then, painters were making about $68 a day. I think it was $6 or $7 an hour or something we were getting. And so I went over and I gave her an estimate. I remember it was $235 to do a senior citizens bedroom and bathroom. And that was a good price for them at the time. So she accepted my bid, but I was young and ambitious and had good work ethics, and my goodness, I could do two and a half of those suites a day. Well, when I realized the kind of money that I was making, potentially, um, in a day compared to what a painter would make by the hour, I thought, well, you know what? I think maybe I'm going to go for this. So I did a bunch of suites for her, and then her husband called me to do some apartment buildings that he owned, and that was 1976, I think. And then I went up to, I went in and made some flyers up. They're very amateur. Those called letter set. You could buy these in the drugstore, little letters. You pick them off with a razor knife and place some Stewart Painting, get your free estimates, and so on, and a phone number. And I went up to a little town called Manning, and with a stapler and some tape, and I posted them wherever. I posted these flyers wherever I could see, on the telephone poles and bulletin boards in the hotel and so on. And I came back to Grimshaw that night, 62 miles, and my young wife at the time, she said, "Bruce," she says, "the phone's ringing off the hook. You got to go back to Manning and start doing estimates." So that was kind of a remarkable um, thing to happen, and it just so happened that once I did one house, the next house needed painting, and the next house needed painting, and my goodness, I rented a house in Manning and had two vans on the road and 6 guys working for me. I was only 20 years old. It was a remarkable way to start. So I registered Stewart Painting in 1977. Then 1978 hits. Well, we all know what happens then in Alberta and in Canada. That's when the boom hit. And the boom hit us hard. And I didn't even know what was going on. I noticed a lot of people from other parts of the country coming into our town, and there was new builders coming into town. I said, what the heck? And I was a young lad and ambitious, and there wasn't any painters up there. There was, I remember there was an old gentleman that would rather do a living room for a lady in an afternoon, but nobody that would take on multiple houses. And so I went at it, and by goodness, by the time I was, I don't know, 21 years old, I bought property there and had a bunch of employees, and I was doing real well. And by the time the 80s rolled around, I was doing gas plants and water reservoirs, and I did the High Prairie Police Station, and boy, it was a remarkable success story. Then one day I went into the police station, and the sergeant, he said to me, he says, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Well, I'm just come to do a few final touch-ups." He says, "Well, haven't you heard?" I says, "Heard what?" He said, well, the company you're contracted with, the general contractor, wanted a receivership. Well, I really didn't know what this was going to end up to be like. As I said, I was a very young man and not experienced with business at all. And and the other company, another big job that I was doing, Peace River Water Reservoir, and the company went belly up too. So I think it was owed to me about $42,000 back then in '78 or in '82. That was a lot of money, and I owed a bunch of money out of that, probably around $16,000. And the economy went to the point where everybody was going broke. I suppose I should have claimed bankruptcy too, but I'm not that type of person. So when money goes bad, sometimes a marriage will go bad too, and I ended up getting into a divorce or having a divorce. And my wife and I parted ways and sold the property and shook hands, and I jumped in my van and loaded up all my tools and everything I had and drove out to Edmonton. I started over again. And it was a struggle starting over again, but we managed. And any money I could save, I sent back to the debt that I owed in Peace River area. And I guess that shows some integrity and some honor. And but it took a while, but here we are in 2025 now. We've had some success. We've done a lot of buildings in Edmonton and surrounding areas. We've had a part in painting buildings at the university and faculty extension building and CSB we painted in there, and we had a hand in a lot of the painting in Canada Place. It wasn't my contract, but I painted all the elevators door with electrostatic sprayers in there, and some of the difficult areas I painted myself, and I went to work for an electrostatic company, and I learned all about that field, and so we came along now to where we're at now. I've decided that it isn't a good idea anymore to have 25 guys working for us. It's just too complicated. You have too many problems and ends up to have too many complaints. So I've decided now we just keep 2 crews at the most, 4 to 6 guys, and that way we keep the quality up and our good name. So that's a bit of the story for Stewart Painting, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come away with the understanding that if you hire us to do your painting, you'll be assured a high quality job for a very competitive price. Thanks for listening.